That's the most messed up act of kindness. My wife Haley was 28 when they found a tumor wrapped around her brainstem like a parasite. 3 surgeons said removing it would kill her, and I held her hand in waiting rooms while she planned what songs she wanted at her funeral. Then Dr. Eric looked at her scans for an hour and said, "I can save you." Haley cried in my arms that night for the first time since diagnosis. The surgery lasted 14 hours, and when Dr. Eric found me in the waiting room, his scrubs were soaked with sweat, but he was smiling. Haley could speak and move and remember my name when they said she might never do any of those things again. We brought Dr. Eric champagne on her discharge day, and he hugged us both like family. For 3 months, our life felt like a miracle with Haley getting stronger every week. She painted again, and we took walks and made love like newlyweds discovering each other. Dr. Eric called these his victory check-ins, and we'd tell him every small triumph while he beamed with pride. But then the weekly appointments became twice weekly because he said her case was teaching him so much about the brain. Haley was too grateful to mind, and I was too relieved to question it. By month 6, I noticed Dr. Eric's eyes stayed on Haley too long during examinations, like she was a painting he'd created. He started calling her my masterpiece instead of using her name, and his hands would linger on her skull where the scar was. When I mentioned it to Haley, she said I was being ungrateful, but I saw how she flinched when he touched her now. Then came the night calls asking about her dreams and demanding detailed descriptions of her headaches. I found forms for research studies with my signature that I'd never signed, and when I confronted him, he laughed and said I must have forgotten in the stress of her recovery. The monthly MRIs he insisted on made Haley claustrophobic, but he said skipping even one could mean missing something fatal. I started going to appointments with her after finding him in her office at lunch, checking her pupils because the afternoon light was optimal. My jaw would clench when he'd show other doctors videos of her walking without our permission, but speaking up felt like spitting on a miracle. The breaking point was when he told Haley she couldn't switch to a local neurologist for follow-ups because no one else could understand what he'd done inside her skull. That night I told her we needed to get away from him, but she was terrified he might be right. Everything exploded the night I woke to find our bedroom door open and Dr. Eric standing over Haley with a portable MRI scanner. My body went cold as he slid the device over her sleeping head while whispering measurements into a recorder. When I shouted his name, my voice cracked and he looked at me perfectly calm, saying, "Monthly scans aren't showing the micro changes in tissue density." Haley jolted awake screaming, and I reached for her but froze when I saw the IV port taped to her arm. "When did you put that in her?" I asked, and my hands started shaking as he explained he'd been injecting contrast dye during her sleep for better imaging. He said it like I should thank him for his dedication. I grabbed my phone to call 911, but he'd already called them claiming Haley was having a psychotic break from her surgery and needed psychiatric intervention. 2 officers arrived within minutes with paperwork for an emergency hold that he'd prepared in advance. Brain surgery patients often develop paranoia about their caregivers, he told them, while I tried to explain he'd broken into our house. The officers looked between us confused as Dr. Eric pulled up medical files on his tablet showing notes about Haley's increasing hostility toward necessary care. Haley was sobbing, and I moved toward her, but Dr. Eric stepped between us holding a syringe saying, "This will calm the delusions, sweetheart." Something snapped in me and I grabbed the baseball bat I kept under our bed with hands that wouldn't stop trembling. "Get out of my house!" I screamed while my heart slammed against my ribs. The officers put their hands on their weapons, but I kept the bat raised until everyone backed into the hallway. Dr. Eric stood on our porch after they left and said in this dead voice, "I own that brain. I carved every pathway she thinks through. Without me, she's just tissue dying in her skull." I held Haley on the bathroom floor until sunrise, while she shook and asked if she was going to die without him. They revoked Dr. Eric's license after we proved he'd been drugging Haley to create symptoms that required his treatment, but the damage was done. We moved across the country using money I borrowed from my brother, and Haley still won't let new doctors examine her. She takes aspirin for headaches that never stopped, and I catch her touching her scar when she thinks I'm not looking. Last month, a medical journal arrived with an article about her case published under a pseudonym. I burned it before she could see, but we both know who wrote it.